a spineless doctor, a cunning mistress, and a mother-in-law who always sided with outsiders. They thought Sophia would continue to endure and suffer in silence, but they were wrong. After a series of deep wounds, she began to awaken. Her newfound composure made the guilty tremble. The path that followed was filled with shocking reversals, painful reckonings, and the resurrection of a woman who had once been utterly underestimated. They had always believed she was weak, but when Sophia finally stood up, their entire world came crashing down. That morning, early sunlight slanted through the kitchen window, illuminating the countertop where Sophia was gathering her architectural blueprints. She took a sip of her lukewarm coffee and called into the bedroom. "Dan, honey, I'm borrowing your car to head over to the site in River North. Mine's on empty and I'm running late." From inside, Daniel's sleepy voice drifted out. "Yeah, go ahead. The keys are on the counter." Sophia grabbed the keys, slipped on her shoes, and headed down to the condo's underground parking garage. Opening the car door, she placed her portfolio on the passenger seat. But as she leaned over to fasten her seatbelt, something sparkling on the floor mat caught her eye. It was a tiny earring, but it glinted so brightly it was impossible to miss. She picked it up and held it to the light. It was a delicate, water-drop design, studded with crystals, a youthful, feminine style favored by women in their early 20s. It was nothing like her own simple, unadorned taste. "What is this?" she wondered, frowning. A vague suspicion flickered in her mind, but she dismissed it just as quickly. Daniel was a surgeon. Patients were in and out of his car all the time. It was perfectly normal for someone to drop something, wasn't it? Still, it felt strange. Sophia placed the earring in the center console cubby and started the engine, a peculiar chill creeping up her spine. Later that evening, she placed dinner on the table and held the earring out to her husband. "Dan, look at this." Daniel, drying his hands as he walked over, glanced at it. He froze for half a second before breaking into a laugh. "Oh, that. It must belong to a patient. I gave someone a ride home the other day. They must have dropped it." Sophia watched him, her dark eyes still and unreadable for a moment. "A female patient?" Daniel nodded, his tone so casual it was almost impossible to doubt. "Yeah, a plastic surgery patient. It was an urgent case, so I drove her back to the hospital myself. Don't worry about it. People leave stuff in my car all the time." She fell silent, partly believing him, partly not. "I'm not worried. I was just afraid she wouldn't be able to find it." Throughout dinner, Sophia tried to keep the conversation light, but his explanation about the patient replayed in her mind like a warped recording. She knew Daniel loved her, but this feeling wasn't jealousy. It was intuition, the gut feeling of a woman about to lose something she hadn't even realized was slipping away. That night, while folding laundry in their bedroom, she heard a notification buzz from Daniel's phone. He was in the shower, and his phone was on his desk, the screen lighting up. One text, then another. "E.M. You home yet?" "Waiting." Sophia froze. The initials, E.M., were displayed as clearly as a knife's edge against her eyes. The word patient from that morning echoed in her head. A knot formed in her chest, but she didn't touch the phone. She didn't move a muscle, simply watching as the screen's light slowly faded to black. A minute passed, then 2. The bathroom door opened. Daniel's eyes immediately darted to his desk. Seeing the phone dark, he seemed to relax, but his hand trembled slightly as he picked it up. It was a tiny tremor, but it didn't escape Sophia's notice. "Finished with the laundry?" he asked. "Yes, all done." She offered a faint smile, as if she had seen nothing. "After you're done, I'll go make some juice." Daniel glanced at his wife, a flicker of caution in his eyes. Sophia turned and walked away, her step slow and steady, but inside, her heart was a whirlwind of confusion, disappointment, and a sharp, stabbing pain. Later, as they lay in bed, Daniel wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. Sophia lay still, her body not resisting, but her eyes were wide open in the darkness. The notification sound chimed again, soft and low, as if someone was deliberately texting late to test the waters. Daniel flinched, pulling his arm from her waist. He grabbed his phone and turned his back to her. "Just checking a message from the hospital," he said, his voice stiff and unnatural. I'll be right to sleep. Sophia closed her eyes and let out a long, quiet breath. A new chapter of her life had begun with that tiny earring, a silent object under the passenger seat that now carried the weight of 1,000 suspicions. And tonight, those suspicions had fully awakened. The next morning, the atmosphere in their South Loop apartment was deceptively calm. Sophia prepared a protein shake and placed it in front of Daniel, just as she always did, but the clear light in her eyes was gone. Daniel, scrolling through his on-call schedule on his phone, spoke in a monotone. "I'm on the night shift tonight. Go to bed early. Don't wait up for me." Sophia nodded. "Okay. Drive safe." Her voice was soft, but her heart was tight with a familiar anxiety, like an invisible thread tightening around her chest. Everything in the air, from the subtle furrow of Daniel's brow to the way he avoided her gaze, felt wrong. That afternoon, while reviewing blueprints in her studio, Sophia's phone buzzed insistently. It was Chloe, her best friend since college, who never texted unless it was urgent. The first message read, "Soph, you need to see this." It was followed by a screenshot of a photo, blurry and dark, but clear enough to show a tall, slender man helping a young woman out of a car. The timestamp in the corner read 1:17 a.m. Chloe's second text appeared immediately after. "This is from a private group for staff at Lakeside General. I'm not saying it's him for sure, but that posture, the way he's standing, it looks a lot like your husband." Sophia's hand trembled, and her pencil slipped, clattering onto the floor. She zoomed in on the picture. It was blurry, yes, but the man's silhouette, the slight tilt of his shoulders as he supported the woman, it was achingly familiar, an image etched into her memory from every walk they had ever taken together. The woman in the photo wore a dark blue hospital jacket, her hair long and her frame petite. She looked like the new surgical tech, Emily. Sophia's throat went dry. She quickly typed back to Chloe. "Where did you get this?" Chloe replied instantly, her text rapid fire. "A friend of mine screen-grabbed it from their gossip chat. I saw it and sent it to you right away. Look again, Soph." "Wasn't Dan on the night shift last night?" Sophia stared at the screen, and it took her a few seconds to type a single word. "Yes." Suddenly, the memory of last night's hidden text message flooded her mind. All the pieces clicked into place, sending a cold dread through her. That evening, when Daniel came home to change before his shift, Sophia leaned against the bedroom door, watching him for a long time. He opened the closet, took out a fresh set of scrubs, and carefully packed them into his backpack. "Daniel," Sophia said softly. He turned, slightly startled. "What is it?" She didn't beat around the bush. "What time did your shift end last night?" "This morning," Daniel replied quickly. "It was crazy busy. I was exhausted." Sophia nodded and walked closer, holding her phone out to him. On the screen was the photo Chloe had sent. "Is this you?" Daniel stared at the image, his eyes widening for a moment before narrowing in analysis. It took him a few seconds to force a laugh. "Seriously? You believe a blurry photo like this?" "I don't believe it. I just want an explanation." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "There was a late surgery last night. My colleague, Emily, was still groggy from the anesthesia. I was just helping her out of the car so she could rest in the on-call room. That's it. Don't overthink things." His voice was logical, clinical, and so familiar. But this time, for some reason, it wasn't convincing. She looked deep into his eyes. "Are you sure?" Daniel placed his hands on her shoulders. "Of course. I'm a doctor. I wouldn't do anything unprofessional." His words, meant to reassure her, instead felt like kindling to a small, growing fire inside her. She forced a smile. "Okay, I understand. You should get to work before you're late." Daniel smiled back and gave her a light kiss on the forehead, a habit that once warmed her heart, but today made her skin crawl. He left. The door clicked shut, and the apartment fell silent. So silent she could hear her own breathing. Her phone vibrated again. It was Chloe. "Soph, are you okay? I'm worried." Sophia stared at the message for a long moment before replying, "I'm okay, but I'm scared, Chloe. I'm scared that a woman's intuition is never wrong." Outside the window, the afternoon sun cast long, beautiful, but cold golden streaks across the city. For the first time in her marriage, Sophia felt one thing with absolute clarity. Daniel was hiding something from her. And it wasn't something small. That afternoon, the sky was overcast, with heavy gray clouds pressing down, making the air feel thick and oppressive. Sophia had just finished a client meeting downtown when her mother-in-law, Carol, called. Her voice was the same as always, sharp and slightly commanding. "Sophia, I need you to stop by the house this afternoon. There's something I want to talk to you about." Sophia paused for a second before replying, "Okay, I'll be there in about half an hour." She hung up, a familiar sense of unease washing over her, the same feeling she'd had holding the strange earring and looking at that blurry photo. A series of odd events was slowly connecting, tightening like a net around her life. When Sophia walked through the gate of her in-laws' house, a tidy two-story home in the quiet suburb of Oak Park, the smell of fresh fruit and the sound of a knife on a cutting board drifted from the kitchen. She set her bag down and called out, "I'm here, Carol." There was no reply from her mother-in-law. Instead, a young, cheerful female voice called from the kitchen, "Carol, I finished slicing the apples." Sophia froze. She walked quickly toward the kitchen, where a scene unfolded that made her chest tighten. Emily, the woman from the photo, was standing at the kitchen counter. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, and she was wearing a simple white t-shirt and the floral apron Sophia herself had bought for Carol when she and Daniel were first married. Emily was washing a bowl of fruit as if she had been a part of the family for years. Carol stood beside her, her expression full of affection. When she saw Sophia enter, Carol barely glanced at her. "Oh, you're here." Emily turned around, flashing a sweet, practiced smile. "Hi, Sophia. I'm Emily." Sophia didn't answer right away. She took a moment to steady her breathing, to force a smile, to stop herself from blurting out, "What are you doing here?" She managed a quiet, "Hello." Carol wiped her hands on a towel and turned to Sophia, her tone a mixture of blame and lecture. "You're always so busy with work. Sometimes a whole week goes by before you visit. Meanwhile, Emily here is so sweet and knows how to look after Daniel. She's been helping me clean the house all morning." Sophia glanced at Emily, who was still smiling, her eyes sparkling. But beneath the sparkle, there was a hint of triumph. Emily added, "Carol just asked me to come over to help out a bit. It's nice to have company, and I offered to make some dessert for her." Sophia felt something inside her shatter like a piece of glass. Carol continued, not bothering to be subtle. "Sophia, you're so focused on your career that you neglect your husband. Daniel comes home exhausted from his night shifts with no one to care for him. Thank goodness Emily has been helping me look after him, otherwise he'd run himself into the ground." The words were like needles, piercing straight through Sophia's heart. "What are you trying to say, Carol?" she asked, her voice strained but steady. Carol sighed disapprovingly. "I'm saying that a man works hard and needs someone to take care of him. I think you're too wrapped up in your job, and Daniel isn't getting the attention he needs. Honestly, you should take a good look at yourself." Beside them, Emily lowered her head, feigning shyness. "Oh, Carol, don't say that. I'm just helping out." Watching them, Sophia understood with a chilling, knife-sharp clarity. She was being replaced, piece by piece, right in front of her own family. She took a deep breath. "Carol, may I ask why you're letting a stranger have free run of your house like this?" Carol rolled her eyes. "A stranger? Emily is a sweet, kind girl. I'm fond of her. And she works in the same department as Daniel. They get along so well. Look at her, she knows how to care for a family better than you do." Another blow, deeper and heavier this time. Sophia looked at Emily, who was still pretending to wash fruit, a sly smirk playing on her lips. A cold shiver ran down Sophia's spine. This was no longer just a suspicion. She said softly, "I see. I should get going. If you need anything, just call me." Carol waved a dismissive hand. "Fine, you can go. Emily can help me with whatever I need." Sophia turned to leave, her feet as heavy as stones. Just as she reached the door, she heard Emily's soft voice behind her. "Carol, should I get out some more apples?" The question was like a slap in the face, confirming that her place in this family was being methodically pushed aside. She stepped outside and stood in the yard for a moment, trying to regain her composure. Her phone rang. It was Chloe. Sophia answered, her voice trembling. "Chloe, I don't think I'm his wife anymore." On the other end, Chloe was silent for a few seconds before saying, her voice filled with concern, "Soph, I'm afraid this is bigger than you think." The wind rustled the dry leaves on the ground. Sophia clenched her fists. She knew this was only the beginning. That evening, Sophia felt emotionally drained. After returning from her mother-in-law's house, she sat alone in the living room for nearly an hour. The dim yellow light cast her shadow long and lonely against the wall. Daniel's phone pinged with a notification. The screen lit up with 2 words, "On call." Sophia stared at it for a long moment, then stood up and grabbed her car keys. She whispered to herself, "I have to see for myself. No more guessing." She drove to the hospital where Daniel was on the night shift. The sky had darkened, and a thin layer of fog was settling over the streets. Lakeside General was still brightly lit, the distant wail of an ambulance making the air feel even colder. Sophia parked her car and walked into the main lobby. She knew the on-call room for Daniel's surgical department was at the end of the hall, right next to the pharmacy. The hallway lights flickered faintly, and her footsteps echoed like a drumbeat, heralding the arrival of the truth. As she approached the on-call room, a warm, yellow light spilled from under the door, a stark contrast to the cold knot tightening in her chest. She was about to knock when she heard a muffled sob from inside. It was Emily's voice. "Dan, I'm so tired," Emily whimpered, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I'm just so exhausted. I just want to lean on you." Sophia froze, an icy chill shooting down her spine. Then, Daniel's voice came, low and soothing, the same gentle tone he used to comfort Sophia when she was overwhelmed. "Shh, it's okay. I'll take care of everything. I'm here for you. Don't cry." Each word was a precise stab to Sophia's heart. She couldn't see what was happening inside, but their voices painted a vivid, painful picture. She leaned against the wall, her hand gripping her purse strap so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her breathing grew shallow and ragged. She wanted to burst in, to confront them, to demand what they were doing, but her feet felt glued to the floor. A part of her clung to the last shred of composure she had left. She knew if she walked in, if she saw it with her own eyes, she might completely fall apart. A young nurse, Miller, walked by and saw her standing there. "Mrs. Miller, are you looking for Dr. Miller?" Sophia flinched, quickly shaking her head and forcing a smile. "Oh, no. I was just dropping something off, but it looks like he's busy. You have a good night." Nurse Miller gave her a sympathetic look before continuing down the hall. Sophia remained, tilting her head to listen more closely. Inside, she heard the sound of a chair scraping, Emily's soft sniffles, and then Daniel's quiet voice. "You're not sleeping enough again. I'll get you something for it later." Emily replied, her voice weak. "I feel better just having you here." Sophia bit her lip until she tasted salt. She looked up at the ceiling, forcing herself to breathe normally, her heart pounding in her throat. She took one step back, then another, until she was far enough from the door that she could no longer hear their whispers. Sophia turned and walked slowly toward the stairs, each step feeling like a layer of skin being peeled from her soul. As she reached the second floor, her phone rang. It was Chloe. She answered, her voice hoarse. I'm at the hospital." "Did you see him?" Chloe asked urgently. "What's going on?" Sophia gripped the railing, taking a deep breath. "I heard enough." "What did you hear?" Sophia closed her eyes, her breath catching in her throat. "I heard him comforting her." The line went silent for a few seconds. Then Chloe spoke, her voice strained but firm. "Okay, stay calm. Don't do anything right now. Just pretend you didn't hear a thing. I have a bad feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg." Sophia leaned against the wall, her fingers trembling. "I don't know how much more of this I can take, Chloe." "Just a little longer," Chloe urged. "You need to see the whole picture before you make a move." Sophia hung up and stood on the stairwell for a long time, the cold draft from a small window carrying the familiar scent of antiseptic. She glanced back up the hallway where Daniel and Emily were, then turned away. It wasn't out of weakness, but out of a dawning realization that this storm was only just beginning. She walked out of the hospital, her heart as heavy as a stone, but a tiny glint of light had appeared in her eyes. It was the light of a woman who was finally seeing the truth and preparing herself for what was to come. After the night she stood outside the on-call room door, Sophia became quieter. She didn't cry, but her silence was suffocating, even to herself. Her birthday arrived a day Daniel had always made special with flowers, a fancy dinner, and commemorative photos. But this year was different. That afternoon, her mother called, her voice warm. "Honey, are you coming over to visit tonight? Your father and I made a little something for you." Sophia smiled, but her voice was small. "I'm staying home to wait for Dan, Mom. I think he'll be home after his shift." "All right, sweetie. As long as you're happy," her mother said gently. "Happy birthday, then." "Thanks, Mom," she replied, a lump forming in her throat. After hanging up, Sophia looked at the dining table. 2 plates, 2 sets of silverware, 3 simple dishes she had cooked herself, and a small cake in the center, its candle unlit. She glanced at the clock, 8 p.m. She sat on the sofa and sent Daniel a text. "Hey, are you coming home early tonight?" No reply. The minutes turned into hours. At 10:30 p.m., Sophia stood up and began pacing. She was anxious but tried to convince herself that Daniel was just busy with work. At exactly 11 p.m., she heard the key in the lock. She paused. Daniel walked in, shrugging off his doctor's coat. "I'm home," he said, his voice laced with fatigue. Sophia walked toward him, about to ask if he was tired, but as she got closer, she caught the scent of an unfamiliar perfume. It was sweet and youthful, nothing like her own, and not a scent Daniel ever wore. It lingered on the collar of his shirt, as if someone had been standing very close to him. She looked at him, her voice quiet but sharp. "You're late." Daniel offered a faint smile, avoiding her eyes. "There was an emergency case. I was so busy I left my phone in the on-call room." Just as he finished speaking, his phone, in his pocket, lit up with a notification. The screen was clearly visible. "EM, did you get home safe? I was worried." In that instant, Sophia's heart stopped for a beat, as if an invisible hand had squeezed it shut. Daniel quickly turned off the screen and shoved the phone deep into his pocket. "It's just a work message, nothing important," he said quickly. Sophia stared at him for a long time. Her eyes were no longer teary or sad, they were just empty. She turned away. "I made dinner. It's probably cold by now." Daniel hung his coat on a chair. "Let's just eat tomorrow. I'm too tired right now." Sophia stood frozen, her back trembling slightly, but her voice remained steady. "It's my birthday today." Daniel flinched and turned to her. "Oh God, I completely forgot." "I'm so sorry, Soph. We'll go out and celebrate properly some other time, I promise." "I completely forgot." The words were like a cold blade. Sophia didn't argue or say anything more. She simply walked to the dining table, struck a match, and lit the small candle. The flickering flame reflected in her weary eyes. No flowers, no well wishes, no embrace, just her and a solitary candle. Daniel stood behind her but didn't come closer. "You should get some sleep." "I'm going to take a shower," he said dismissively. The bathroom door clicked shut, and the living room fell into an unnerving silence. Sophia watched the candle for a few seconds, then leaned forward and gently blew it out. The flame vanished in an instant, as if her birthday had never happened. In the darkness, she didn't shed a single tear. Not one. But her silence was its own form of profound pain. She murmured to herself, her voice like a whisper of wind, "Birthdays don't always have to be happy." Then she stood up and began clearing the table, gathering the dishes as if she were collecting the shattered pieces of her own heart. From the bathroom, the steady sound of water hitting the tiles echoed, while inside her something fractured once more. The day after her birthday, Sophia went to work with a strangely placid expression. No anger, no irritation, no sadness, just silence. Her quiet demeanor made her colleagues in the accounting department glance over, but no one dared to ask what was wrong. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Chloe, with her characteristically blunt and fiery nature, was standing in front of Lakefront Brews. She was about to grab a coffee to go when she stopped dead in her tracks. There, at a table right by the window, sat Emily across from Daniel. She was wearing a white dress, holding a small fork, and feeding Daniel a bite of cake as if they were a long-term couple. Chloe's eyes widened. "You have got to be kidding me," she whispered. Daniel made no move to pull away. He even leaned in to let Emily wipe a crumb from the corner of his mouth. Then, Emily playfully tugged at his sleeve, giggling. The intimacy between them was undeniable. Standing outside, Chloe's hands began to shake with rage. "The nerve of these two," she muttered. She quickly pulled out her phone. "Let's see you deny this." Hiding behind a pillar, Chloe filmed everything clearly, from Emily feeding Daniel the cake to Daniel smiling and gently patting Emily's head. After recording, she sent the video to Sophia with a single line, "Soph, I'm sorry, but I had to film this. Look." A few minutes later, Sophia's phone buzzed. She opened the message and watched the video. There was no gasp, no sharp intake of breath, no tears. Her eyes just lingered on the moment Daniel leaned forward to let Emily wipe his mouth. A heavy silence descended. She replayed the video a second time, then a third. Then, she saved the clip to a private folder she named Contingency. Sophia set her phone down and took a deep breath. She didn't cry, she didn't tremble. She stood up, poured herself a glass of water, and took small, deliberate sips. Something inside her had shifted. The suffocating pain was gone. In its place, a slow, creeping clarity settled over her heart, as cold and still as a frozen lake at dawn. Her phone rang. It was Chloe. Sophia answered. "I saw it." Chloe's voice was tight with anger. "Aren't you furious, Soph? She was feeding your husband cake in the middle of a crowded cafe." Sophia placed her glass down, her voice surprisingly calm. "Of course I'm angry, but I can't cry anymore. Everyone says I'm too nice, but I'm not stupid." Chloe was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to do?" Sophia walked to the window and looked down at the endless stream of traffic below. She spoke slowly, each word distinct. "I'm going to watch. I'm going to let them get comfortable, let them make mistakes. Then, I'll act." Chloe inhaled sharply. "Wow, that gives me chills. You've changed, Soph." "Anyone changes when they're betrayed, Chloe," Sophia said softly, but her tone was sharp. She hung up and returned to her desk. No one could see that behind her calm expression, a new, steely resolve had taken root. That evening, when Daniel came home, he asked casually, "Tough day at work, Soph?" She offered a faint smile. "I'm fine. How was your commute?" "The usual," he said, taking off his watch and yawning. "I'm going to shower." Sophia watched his back as he walked into the bathroom. The moment the door closed, her gaze turned colder than it had ever been. It wasn't hatred. It was the quiet resolve of a woman who had reached a critical stage of betrayal. No more tears, no more waiting, only watching and preparing. And Daniel had no idea that the storm he had created was just beginning to gather wind. That afternoon, the Chicago sky had a strange, gloomy cast. The wind whipped through the trees lining the street, carrying the residual heat of midday and making the air feel suffocating. Sophia drove home earlier than usual, not because she wanted to surprise her husband or because she missed him. She simply wanted to return to her home, a place that was once hers, but lately felt as foreign as a stranger's house. She parked her car and got out. Just as she was about to open the front door, she heard a soft laugh from inside. It was a familiar laugh, sweet, with a deliberately coy lilt at the end. It was Emily's. The door opened, and just as a wife's intuition would have it, Emily appeared first. She was wearing a form-fitting t-shirt, her hair pulled back, and she was carrying a pink tote bag. She walked out with an air of complete ease, as if this were her own home. When she saw Sophia standing at the door, Emily froze for half a second before her face broke into an unnervingly sweet smile. "Oh, Sophia, you're home. I was just helping Dan tidy up a bit. The place was a little messy, so I thought I'd give him a hand. Tidying up, in my home." Sophia stood perfectly still, neither stepping forward nor moving aside. She just stared, her eyes calm but as cold and sharp as glass. Emily clutched her tote bag with both hands, her eyes darting around nervously. "I was just helping out," she repeated, her voice softer this time. Sophia didn't reply. She didn't nod or shake her head. She just looked at Emily, her gaze asking a question every woman would understand. When exactly did I give you permission to be here? Just then, Daniel appeared from behind Emily. He was wearing a casual t-shirt, his hair still slightly damp, as if he had just showered. When he saw his wife standing at the door, his expression changed instantly. "Soph, you're home early," he said, his voice laced with panic. Sophia looked directly at him, her tone as flat as a ruler. "Is there something wrong with me coming home to my own house?" Emily looked down, pretending to adjust her bag strap, avoiding Sophia's gaze. Daniel swallowed hard, stumbling over his words. I just asked Emily to come over and help with something. I was reorganizing some things in the study and—" Sophia cut him off, her voice low but piercingly sharp. "You asked an outsider to clean our home while I'm still alive?" An uncomfortable silence filled the space. Emily mumbled, "I was just helping him out for a bit." Sophia stared at her, not raising her voice, but her gaze was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. "Running around in my husband's bedroom, you call that helping?" Emily stammered, flustered. "I was just folding the blanket." Daniel jumped in, his voice hurried. "Don't misunderstand. I was moving some heavy boxes in the study and asked Emily for help. You didn't tell me you were coming home early, so—" Sophia asked him directly, no longer mincing words. "So, how long were you planning to hide this from me?" Daniel froze, not expecting such a direct question. Sophia took a step closer, standing directly in front of them both. "Who do you bring into my house without asking me first?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no coherent words came out. He couldn't understand why Sophia was so calm today. Her calmness worried him far more than her anger ever could. Emily whispered meekly, "I should probably go and let you two talk." She bowed her head slightly and squeezed past Sophia. As she passed, Emily shot her a quick, defensive glance, mixed with a hint of fear. Sophia didn't look back. The door closed behind Emily, leaving the two of them alone. Daniel tried to force a smile. "Don't blow this out of proportion. She was just helping. It's not a big deal." Sophia took off her bag and set it on the table, her movements slow and deliberate. "You're very good at explaining things, but your actions don't match your words." "Are you accusing me of something?" Daniel asked, his voice growing tense. "No," Sophia replied flatly. "I'm not accusing you anymore." Daniel frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sophia looked deep into her husband's eyes, her gaze so cold and sharp that he had to look away. "It means I'm starting to be sure. No shouting, no crying, no accusations." But it was this very composure that made Daniel break out in a cold sweat. Sophia picked up her keys from the table, walked into their bedroom, and closed the door. Daniel stood outside, a sense of dread washing over him like a storm was about to break, and he had no idea that this was only the second act of the drama. The foundation of tolerance in Sophia's heart was beginning to crack. The next morning, while organizing files at her office, Sophia received a call from her mother-in-law, Carol. Her voice was unusually gentle, a strained attempt at concern. "Sophia, dear, why don't you come over for dinner tonight? I'll make your favorites. Let's have a nice family meal together." Sophia stared at her phone for a few seconds before answering. "All right, I'll be there." "Wonderful. I'll be waiting. Come early, okay?" Carol said, audibly pleased. Sophia hung up and placed the phone gently on the desk. No expression crossed her face, but she knew this dinner would be anything but simple. That evening, Sophia arrived at her in-laws' house, a place she had once considered her second home. As she stepped into the yard, she could hear laughter and conversation coming from inside. When she took off her shoes and entered the living room, the first thing she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Emily was sitting at the center of the dining table. Not only was she sitting there, but she was wearing one of the house aprons and serving food onto Carol's plate, her face beaming. "You have to try this while it's hot, Carol. I made it myself." Carol was glowing. "My goodness, this girl is just a treasure. She cooks wonderfully and takes such good care of Daniel, unlike some people who are busy all the time." With the last sentence, she deliberately looked straight at Sophia. Daniel sat next to Emily, his expression tense, but he said nothing to defend his wife. Sophia stood still for a moment, then smiled a smile so faint it seemed devoid of emotion, yet it instantly shifted the atmosphere in the room. "Good evening, Carol. Sorry I'm a little late." Carol jutted her chin out, her tone icy. "Come in. We weren't waiting." Sophia walked to the table. Just as she placed her bag on a chair, Emily stood up eagerly. "Sophia, sit here. I saved the best seat for you." She spoke with a cheerful lilt, but her eyes were filled with triumph. Sophia sat down without a word. She glanced at the meal. All the dishes she used to cook for the family were now prepared by Emily. Carol placed a piece of braised pork in Emily's bowl, her voice affectionate. "Eat up, dear. You must be tired from taking care of Daniel." Emily smiled sweetly. "Oh, it's no trouble. I'm used to looking after him." The words buzzed in Sophia's ears, but her face remained impassive. Carol then launched into a direct comparison, her tone heavy with insinuation. "Sophia, you should learn from her. A woman needs to know how to nurture a home, to stand behind her husband and support him, just like Emily does." Sophia picked at her vegetables and replied softly, "Everyone has their own way of living, Carol. I don't expect anyone to be like me." "But a wife needs to know how to keep her husband," Carol retorted sharply. "Otherwise, someone else will keep him for you, and you'll lose him before you even know it." The air grew thick. Daniel lowered his head, looking uncomfortable. "Mom, don't say that." Carol shot him a look. "Am I wrong?" Emily picked up her chopsticks, feigning embarrassment. "Carol, please don't blame Sophia. She's just so busy, she probably doesn't have time for these little things." The comment was a direct slap, but Sophia maintained her thin smile. "You're right. I am busy. I don't have time to do other people's jobs for them." Emily froze, sensing the sharp, hidden barb in Sophia's words. Carol continued her praise. "You see, Daniel? This is what a sweet, gentle girl looks like. I already consider her a daughter." She then turned to Sophia. "Look at Emily. She's the perfect example of a family woman." Sophia raised her glass of water, her eyes narrowing slightly as if watching a poorly acted play. "Yes, I see." Her fleeting smile made Emily uneasy. For some reason, the way Sophia smiled sent a shiver of dread down her spine, as if she were about to be caught doing something wrong. The supposedly harmonious dinner was a battlefield, with every word and every glance a hidden weapon. Emily picked up a piece of fish and offered it to Daniel. "Here, you should eat this. I made it just the way you like it." Daniel flinched and glanced at Sophia, but Sophia just smiled a smile that sent a chill through the entire table. "Go on, feed it to him." "I don't mind." Daniel's face flushed with embarrassment. "No, I can get it myself." Emily quickly put her chopsticks down, looking awkward. I was just trying to help." Carol immediately came to her defense. "She's just being caring. Why are you so jealous?" Sophia turned to her mother-in-law and asked softly, "When did I ever show jealousy, Carol?" Sophia placed her chopsticks on the table, her back straight, her voice as smooth as silk. "Don't worry, Mom. Whoever wants to keep Daniel can have him." The entire table fell silent. Daniel looked up at his wife, his eyes filled with confusion. "Sophia, what are you saying?" Sophia smiled, but it was a chilling smile. "I'm saying I'm not fighting for him anymore." The statement was the opening shot of a war. Carol snapped, "What kind of way is that to talk?" Sophia stood up, smoothing her dress. "I'm full. I'll be leaving now. No shouting, no tears, no sulking." But it was this quiet, dignified exit that left the entire family stunned. Sophia walked away, leaving behind a dinner filled with false praise, hypocrisy, and the genuine confusion of those left at the table. As for Emily, her hand unconsciously tightened around a napkin, her smile had completely vanished. It was Sophia's composure that terrified her, a nameless fear, but one that filled her with a deep sense of unease. The atmosphere at the dinner table grew heavy after Sophia stood up to leave. However, just as she took a few steps, she heard a spoon clatter loudly onto the floor. Sophia turned back. Emily was standing next to Daniel, one hand on her chest, the other on the table as if she were losing her balance. A classic theatrical feint. Carol jumped up. "Oh my goodness, are you all right? Daniel, catch her!" Daniel scrambled to reach for her, but just as Emily swayed toward him, intending to fall into his arms, Sophia moved with surprising speed. She stepped forward and blocked Daniel with her arm, catching Emily and steadying her instead. The unexpected move startled Emily, her face paling. Sophia bent down, picked up the spoon, and handed it to her, her voice so low that only the two of them could hear. "Be careful, a real fall would actually hurt." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't understand how such a soft-spoken sentence could send a wave of ice through her entire body, as if Sophia could see right through every layer of her pretense. Emily trembled slightly, forcing a smile. I was just a little clumsy," but she couldn't meet Sophia's gaze. Seeing this, Carol immediately started blaming Sophia. "Sophia, what did you say to her? You can't be that jealous." Sophia calmly turned to face her, her voice smooth but sharp. "When was I ever jealous, Mom? I was just reminding her to be careful. It would be embarrassing to fall in front of the whole family." Her response left Carol speechless, unable to find a reason to argue further. Daniel looked at his wife, his heart sinking. Her composure made him so anxious, his hands were clenched into fists under the table. Sophia looked at each of them, one by one. Her eyes held no anger, no pain, only a chilling indifference that was deeply unsettling. She straightened up and said softly, "If there's nothing else, I have a little announcement to make." Carol crossed her arms. "What trouble are you trying to cause now?" Sophia smiled, a smile that silenced the entire table. "No trouble. I just wanted to let you know that I have a gift for all of you tonight." No one understood what she meant, but her placid expression and thin smile made Emily's hair stand on end. She instinctively grabbed Daniel's sleeve. "Dan, what does she mean by that?" Daniel swallowed hard, trying to appear calm. "Don't worry, she's just talking." But in truth, his heart was pounding. Sophia didn't reply to anyone. She simply bowed her head in a farewell gesture and turned to leave. The sound of her shoes clicked rhythmically down the hallway, each step feeling like it was stomping on the chests of those left behind. Carol scoffed. "That girl is getting more and more disrespectful." "I'm telling you, Daniel, I've had enough of her." Emily sniffled, playing the victim. "Don't be upset, Carol. Maybe she's just under a lot of pressure." Daniel stood up abruptly, annoyed. "Just stop talking." He walked quickly toward the door, as if to follow Sophia, but stopped in the yard, unsure how to face his wife. By then, Sophia had already gotten into a taxi without a single look back. The car door shut with a solid click, as if closing the door on the role she had tried so hard to play in her husband's family. Back in the house, the atmosphere was so heavy it was suffocating, though no one would admit it. Emily hugged her arms, shivering slightly. "Carol, her eyes. They scare me." Carol huffed. "What's there to be scared of? As long as I'm here, what can she do to you?" Emily clenched her fists. "I don't know, but her smile was so strange. It was like she knows everything." Carol tried to brush off the creeping unease she felt. "Don't overthink it. She's just putting on a show." But her eyes kept darting toward the door, as if she feared something was about to happen. As for Daniel, he stood on the porch, his hands gripping the railing. His heart was hammering in his chest, sensing that something was about to collapse. He asked himself, "Sophia, what are you planning to do?" But there was no answer, only the image of his wife's calm, smiling face replaying in his mind like an omen. That evening, the house was so quiet that the ticking of the wall clock seemed unnaturally loud. Sophia hadn't called anyone. She simply sat in the living room, waiting for each member of the family to arrive. Around 8 p.m., Carol's footsteps were the first to be heard, followed by Daniel and Emily, who trailed behind him. Carol stood with her arms crossed, surveying the room. "So, you really wanted to talk about what happened earlier?" "We're all very tired, Sophia." Sophia tilted her head slightly, her tone casual. "Yes, I just wanted to show everyone my gift." Hearing the word gift, Emily unconsciously tightened her grip on Daniel's sleeve. Her heart pounded, whether from the cold or from fear. Daniel tried to sound firm. "What are you planning to do now? Don't take this too far." Sophia didn't answer. She reached into the bag she had placed beside her chair, pulled out a thick stack of papers, and placed it on the wooden coffee table. The thud echoed in the silent room, making all three of them jump. Carol narrowed her eyes. "What's that? Divorce papers?" Daniel took a deep breath, his fists clenching. He clearly thought the same thing. But Sophia calmly pulled out a chair, sat down, and said softly, "Not divorce papers. This is much more important." All three of them froze. Sophia opened the file. The first page had the hospital's logo with a large heading, Lakeside General Hospital, Official Report of Professional Ethics Violation. The air in the room instantly turned to ice. Carol's face went pale. "Sophia, what did you bring here?" Sophia turned the paper so they could read every line clearly. "This is the disciplinary code from Daniel's hospital. Section 4B states, any physician engaging in inappropriate, intimate conduct with a staff member that compromises the hospital's image will be subject to a 6-month suspension and will be ineligible for promotion for 5 years. Her voice was even, without emphasis, but each word struck their ears like a hammer blow. Daniel shot to his feet. "Are you using this to threaten me? Are you insane?" Sophia didn't look at him. She simply flipped to the second page. "The hospital requires evidence for verification, so I've prepared some." She reached into her bag again, took out a small silver USB drive, and placed it neatly on the table. When Emily saw it, her legs gave out, and she had to lean on a chair for support. She stammered, her voice trembling. Where did you get that?" Sophia turned to her, a chillingly pleasant smile on her face. "Oh, the video Chloe sent is very clear. It's the one of you feeding Daniel cake at Lakefront Brews at 3 p.m. The direct hit left Emily speechless, her face ashen. Her hands shook so violently her nails dug into her skin. Carol looked from Daniel to the USB drive, her voice catching. "Daniel, did you really do something so foolish?" Daniel, pale and shaken, tried to maintain his composure. "Mom, don't listen to her. We were just colleagues grabbing a coffee. Sophia is making things up to hurt me." Sophia crossed her arms, her gaze as cold and thin as ice. "If you were just colleagues, then go ahead, take this USB drive and submit it to the hospital yourself. I won't stop you." Daniel was frozen solid. He stared at the USB drive as if it were a knife at his throat. Sophia tilted her head slightly. "What's wrong? Afraid to touch it?" No one could say a word. Even Carol, who always defended her son, stammered. "Daniel, if there's nothing wrong, why is your face so pale?" Daniel gritted his teeth. I have nothing to hide." But his voice trembled like a plucked string. Sophia smiled, as light as the wind. "Don't worry, I haven't sent it yet, but I can send it any time." The atmosphere in the room grew thick and suffocating. Emily took a long, shaky breath, trying to stand straight, but her legs had turned to jelly. She whispered, "What? What do you want from me?" Sophia looked directly into her eyes, her voice perfectly calm. "I want you to remember that everything you do behind someone's back has a price." Emily lowered her head, her shoulders shaking. For the first time, her feigned weakness couldn't hide the raw fear in her eyes. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "Sophia, threatening people like this is going too far." Sophia stood up, neatly placing the file back in her bag. "I haven't threatened anyone. I've simply stated the consequences." She turned to Carol. "Mom, I'm going home to rest now. I'm tired." And with that, amidst the absolute silence of the room, Sophia walked out. No one stopped her. No one could utter a single word. Carol collapsed into her chair, holding her head. "Oh my God. If that video gets out, your career is over, Daniel." Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face, but no one offered any comfort. Daniel stood rooted to the spot in the middle of the living room, his breathing heavy, as if he were being suffocated. This was the first time in his married life that he understood what it felt like to be afraid of his wife, and it was the first time Sophia saw them, one by one, silenced by their own fear. That night, a light, persistent rain fell over Chicago, pattering against the balcony of Sophia and Daniel's condo. The clock showed nearly midnight, but the living room light was still on. Sophia sat on the sofa, holding a warm glass of water. She wasn't crying, she wasn't angry, and she wasn't tired. She was just terrifyingly calm. The bedroom door opened, and Daniel emerged. His shirt was unbuttoned, his hair was a mess, and his face was pale. He stood there for a few seconds, as if carefully choosing his words for a conversation he dreaded. "We need to talk," he said, his voice hoarse as he tried to remain composed. Sophia set her glass down and looked up, her gaze no longer cold, but completely devoid of warmth. "Go ahead." Daniel took a deep breath and sat across from her. The yellow light cast deep shadows on his strained face. His hands were clashed together so tightly his knuckles were white. "What do you want?" he asked, each word a struggle to keep from trembling. "Do you want me to apologize? To end things with Emily? Do you want me to destroy the video?" Sophia looked straight at him, her expression sharp, but her tone even. "I don't want anything. Your reputation is yours to protect. As for the video, you can pretend it doesn't exist." Daniel lowered his head, rubbing his temples, and let out a frustrated sigh. "Sophia, can you please not talk like that? It's making me anxious." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "You're anxious? It's not because of me. It's because you're afraid of losing." Daniel looked up, his face even paler. "Losing what?" Sophia placed her hands on the table, her voice steady. "Losing your career. Losing the perfect image you've worked so hard to build. Losing your position at the hospital. Losing the future you thought I would never have the power to touch." Daniel was speechless. The air grew thick and heavy, as if someone were strangling him. At that same moment, just outside their apartment door, a figure stood huddled against the wall. It was Emily, her mascara smudged from crying, her hands trembling. She held her breath, listening to every word. Inside, Daniel changed his tone, his voice losing its arrogant edge for the first time. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. But you know my mom." Sophia cut him off with a faint smile, not bitter, but chilling. "I don't care what your mom thinks. From now on, whatever you want to do with Emily is your business. I'm not getting involved anymore." Her words were like a blade severing the last thread that tied Daniel to the belief that his wife still loved him. He shot up from his seat. "What does that mean? You're not jealous anymore? You don't need me anymore?" Sophia stood up, her eyes deep and unreadable. "You can answer that question yourself." With that, she walked into the bedroom and closed the door. She didn't slam it or make a sound, but its gentle click felt like his heart was being torn apart. He sank back onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands and whispering, "Oh God, what am I going to do?" In the hallway, Emily bit her lips so hard she drew blood. "If Daniel wavers, I'm done," she thought. "I can't let him go back to his wife." The fire of jealousy in her eyes burned bright red. She hurried away from the door and down to the elevator, her phone vibrating in her hand. Meanwhile, at Carol's house, she sat on her bed, holding a cup of ginger tea, and called her son. "Daniel, listen to me. If you leave your wife now, you're throwing your career out the window. She has you cornered, so you need to be soft with her. That other girl is just a fling, you understand?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, I'm so confused." Carol's voice grew harsh. "Don't be a fool. The angrier she gets, the more you need to hold on to her." Daniel fell silent, his breathing heavy, and it was that silence that ignited a new fire in Emily, who was eavesdropping on the call from outside the gate. She gritted her teeth. "They're going to abandon me. They want to kick me to the curb." Her eyes glowed with rage. "No, never." That night, 3 people, 3 separate fires of thought and emotion, were simmering, ready to erupt. Sophia, silent but sharp, was transforming. Daniel, panicked and torn, was wavering. And Emily, consumed by jealousy and desperation, was beginning to lose control. The real power play had only just begun. The next morning, the hospital parking garage was busier than usual, a chaotic mix of car horns and the hurried footsteps of doctors and nurses. But in a quiet corner of the underground level, the air was strangely still. Sophia had just locked her car when a soft, pleading voice called out from behind her, "Sophia, wait a second." She turned. It was Emily, her face heavily made up, but her eyes were red and swollen, and her hair hung limply as if she hadn't slept all night. She walked closer, her voice strained. I just want to talk to you for a minute." Sophia stood tall, showing no surprise and making no effort to move away. "Make it quick, I have to get to my department." Emily bit her lip, and tears began to well in her eyes. "Please don't misunderstand me. It's not what you think between me and Dan. I have a medical condition. I'm very weak. Dan just feels sorry for me." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "A medical condition? If you're really sick, it must be a condition that makes you prey on other people's husbands." Emily froze, then quickly wiped her tears. "Can you please not be so cruel? I truly have feelings for Dan. I never meant to break up your family. I just want to be loved." Sophia let out a short, humorless breath. "You really think I'm going to fall for your tears?" Her voice was calm, but as sharp as a razor's edge, not loud or insulting, but it stripped away any power to argue. Emily clenched her fists. "Don't think you can look down on me just because you're his wife. The truth is, I knew him before you did. Before you married him, he told me he cared about me." Sophia didn't respond. She just looked at her for a long time, her expression not one of anger but of pity. And it was this calm pity that drove Emily into a rage. She was about to say more when a faint beep sounded. A security camera mounted on a nearby pillar was pointed directly at them, its red light blinking. Their entire conversation was being recorded. At that moment, a cough echoed from a short distance away. Dr. Peterson, a senior physician who had worked at the hospital for over 20 years, was walking past. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but Emily's loud declaration, "I knew him before you married him," was impossible to miss. He paused for a moment, his eyes filled with suspicion as he looked between the two women. "Is everything all right here?" he asked quietly. Emily jumped. "Yes, it's nothing, doctor," but her darting eyes told a different story. Sophia bowed her head respectfully. "Good morning, Dr. Peterson." He nodded and continued on his way, shaking his head. "This hospital has had too much drama lately," he muttered to himself. Within half an hour, the rumor had spread like wildfire through every department, from the ER to the surgical ward. Young residents and veteran nurses were all whispering, "Did you hear? Dr. Miller is having an affair with that new surgical tech. They had a huge fight in the parking garage. She even said she knew him before he was married. Oh no, if the director finds out, he's finished." The hospital board, which had already heard whispers about the cafe video, immediately launched an internal investigation. One of the vice presidents said grimly, "If the press gets a hold of this, our reputation is ruined. If this reaches the state medical board, no one can save him." While the hospital was in an uproar, Sophia calmly went about her day, reviewing medical charts as if nothing had happened. A nurse whispered to her, "Sophia, I heard about Dr. Miller." Sophia just smiled. "That's his business. It has nothing to do with me." Her smile was as light as air, but it sent a shiver through the entire department. It wasn't the smile of a betrayed wife. It was the smile of a woman ready to strike back. As for Emily, after her confrontation with Sophia, she stormed into the break room, threw her bag on a chair, and gasped for breath. "This can't happen. I can't let the rumor spread. I can't let the hospital think I seduced Dr. Miller." She repeatedly called Daniel, but he didn't answer. Her panic grew with each unanswered call. "If he abandons me to save himself, No, I won't let that happen." She gripped her phone so tightly her nails dug into her skin. "If Sophia wants to play dirty, I'll play dirtier." Emily's eyes burned with a mixture of hatred, jealousy, and fear. The mistress was preparing to fight back, but she had no idea that the woman she was up against had been preparing for this moment for a long time, and the next blow would not be so gentle. The next morning, as Daniel stepped onto the hospital grounds, a security guard stopped him. The guard looked at him with pity. "Dr. Miller, the board wants to see you in the 6th floor conference room." Immediately. The simple request sent a chill down his spine. The 6th floor conference room was a place where only two kinds of people were summoned, those being honored and those being disciplined. Daniel knew exactly which category he fell into. He walked into the room. 4 members of the hospital board were already seated. No one smiled. The air was so thick it was hard to breathe. The hospital director, Mr. Davis, a notoriously strict man, slammed a file on the table. "Dr. Miller," he began, without any preamble, "explain your relationship with surgical tech Emily Carter." The question was a direct blow. Daniel stammered, "Sir, we're just colleagues." The vice president crossed his arms. Colleagues who go out for intimate meals and get caught on video? Colleagues who have shouting matches in the hospital parking garage for the entire staff to hear? Each word was like a punch to the gut. Mr. Davis coldly pushed a piece of paper across the table. "This is a formal request for you to write a detailed statement about your personal relationship with Miss Carter, to be submitted by the end of the day. And prepare yourself. You may be facing a suspension pending review." Daniel's face went white, sweat beading on his forehead. He struggled to swallow. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding." "Dr. Miller," the director cut him off. "You are a physician. We don't care about your private life, but when you drag this hospital into your mess, you will be held accountable." "But I was set up," Daniel pleaded, his voice trembling. The vice president slammed his hand on the table. "Who set up whom is your problem to solve. This hospital will not tolerate its doctors engaging in unprofessional relationships with staff." The door clicked shut behind him, the sound like the fall of a guillotine. Daniel stumbled, leaning against the wall for support. He had never felt so pathetic. Meanwhile, in the diagnostics lab, Emily was trembling as she was questioned by an internal affairs officer. A fellow tech whispered, "You got called in? That can't be good." Emily bit her lip until it bled. As soon as the officer left, she pulled her closest friend into a corner and said, shaking, "This isn't my fault. It's all Daniel's. He wasn't decisive." He let his wife get the upper hand. Her voice was no longer weak and pleading. It was filled with the frantic energy of someone about to lose everything. "So what are you going to do now?" her friend asked. "I can't get a mark on my record for an ethics violation," Emily said, panicked. "If this goes before the board, I'll be fired." She slammed her hand against a locker. "It's all Daniel's fault. He promised he would protect me. He said he would divorce her, but he's done nothing." Back at her apartment, Sophia received a frantic visit from Carol that afternoon. The moment she opened the door, Carol grabbed her arm. "Sophia, you have to save Daniel. They're going to suspend him." Her face was pale, her voice shaking like someone cornered. "They say he's damaged the hospital's reputation. Please, get rid of that video. Don't let anyone see it." Sophia calmly poured her a glass of water, her voice even. "Have some water, Carol. Then tell me exactly what happened." Carol started sobbing. "Don't be so cold. He's your husband." Sophia looked directly into her eyes. "Yes, he is my husband. But I am not responsible for the problems he created. I can't fix his mistakes for him." Carol froze, unable to believe her ears. "You mean you're just going to let this happen to him?" Sophia set the glass on the table, her voice quiet but firm. "I didn't release the video. I didn't say anything to the hospital. Everything that's happening now is a result of his own actions." Carol was speechless. "But he's about to lose his job, Sophia." Sophia stood up and opened the door. "You should go home, Carol. I am no longer responsible for cleaning up the messes that you and Daniel make." Carol stared at her daughter-in-law, the woman who had always been so gentle, patient, and submissive. Now she stood there strong, sharp, and so terrifyingly calm. For the first time, Carol understood that Sophia's silence was no longer a sign of endurance, it was a sign of letting go. That evening, Daniel sat alone in his home office. On the desk lay the blank statement form he had to submit the next morning. Beside it, his phone remained silent, not a single message from Sophia. He ran his hands through his hair, breathing heavily. How did it all come to this? He remembered Sophia's words, her cold smile, and then the image of Emily's terrified face as she was being questioned. He was being dragged into a hole he had dug himself. For the first time in his life, Daniel realized it wasn't that Sophia had gotten stronger, it was that he had been too weak to hold on to anything. His wife, his career, his honor, it was all slipping away, and he knew this was just the beginning. As night fell, the house was so quiet the ticking of the wall clock seemed to echo. Sophia was organizing a file cabinet when the door swung open. Daniel stood there, his face tense, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "Sophia," he pleaded, "I'm begging you, don't send that video. I'm already under investigation. If this gets any bigger, I'll truly lose everything." Sophia didn't turn around, calmly sliding a folder into the drawer. "I'm not sending it." Daniel breathed a sigh of relief, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. But just as he started to approach her, Sophia added, "But you made this mess. You have to face the consequences." The words felt like a vice squeezing his chest. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You're still angry with me, aren't you? I know I was wrong. I'll fix it, just give me time." Sophia let out a soft, humorless laugh. "You think I'm still waiting for that?" Daniel was silent for a moment, then asked directly, his voice urgent, "What do you want? Do you want to fix this, or do you want a divorce?" He was trembling, unable to look his wife in the eye. Sophia turned, her expression unnervingly calm. "I don't want a divorce." Daniel's face lit up. So that means you still have feelings for me? You want to save our family?" Sophia shook her head. "You're mistaken." She stood up and walked toward him, her voice clear and precise. "I'm not divorcing you, but from this day forward, we are no longer husband and wife." Daniel was stunned. "Sophia, what are you talking about?" "Exactly what you heard," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "On paper, we're still married, but your role in my life is over." Daniel clenched his fists, his breathing ragged. "Are you testing me? Do you want me to prove something to you?" Sophia frowned, her voice turning to ice. "I have no desire to test anyone, nor do I need anyone to prove anything to me anymore." "Then why are you saying this?" he demanded. Sophia looked him straight in the eye, each word landing like a stone. "So that you understand that I am removing you from my life, piece by piece." In that moment, Daniel felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. He stumbled back, grabbing the edge of the desk for support. "Sophia, what does that mean? Don't you want me to change?" "No," Sophia said softly, "because I'm too tired of waiting for you to grow up." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice laced with desperation. "Then what are we?" "Strangers living in the same house," she replied instantly. No pain, no pleading, no begging, just a complete emotional detachment. He stammered, "What about Emily?" I can't just cut her off immediately. She's threatening me. If I leave her, she said she'll reveal another secret at the hospital. I'm trapped, don't you understand?" Sophia laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "So you want me to protect you while you keep Emily around as your insurance policy?" Daniel's face flushed with shame. He was speechless. Sophia looked at him with profound disappointment. "You chose to stand in the middle. But the person in the middle is always the first one to fall." She turned and opened the door. "We will continue to live here until your situation is resolved. But from now on, stay out of my personal life." Daniel rushed forward and grabbed her arm. "How can you say that? How am I supposed to live with that? Sophia, I love you." Sophia pulled her arm away, her voice terrifyingly calm. "I don't need your love anymore." She stepped out of the room, closing the door gently behind her. But the soft click felt like his soul was being ripped in two. He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. It was only now that he understood what it felt like to lose someone while they were still standing right in front of you. That night, Sophia lay in bed, her gaze serene. There was no pain, no agitation, only the relief of finally cutting the ties that had hurt her for so long. She felt as if she had walked through a new door, the door of awakening. And out in the living room, Daniel sat motionless in the dark. For the first time, he saw with absolute clarity that Sophia had changed, and she was never coming back. The morning light streamed through the large glass windows of the design firm, illuminating Sophia's desk. She adjusted a blueprint, her eyes bright and focused. Ever since her declaration, "We are no longer husband and wife," she seemed to have undergone a complete transformation. No more dwelling on Daniel, no more carrying the weight of family drama, no more tears for things that weren't worth them. Her phone buzzed. Chloe, now her colleague as well as her friend, rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. "Sophia, we have a huge client. He said he wants to meet with you personally to go over the design proposal." Sophia looked up. "Which client?" "Ethan Reed," Chloe answered, her voice full of awe. the owner of the HP luxury hotel chain. If you land this project, it will take our firm to a whole new level. Sophia paused for a second. HP Luxury was a heavyweight in the real estate and interior design world. What did he say? She asked softly. He said he reviewed your portfolio and loves your minimalist, sophisticated style. He wants you to conceptualize the entire new resort in Charleston. Sophia smiled. Then let's get ready. Her smile was no longer fragile. It was sharp, confident, and brimming with energy. That afternoon, Sophia arrived for the client meeting at the Gilded Bean, a chic cafe. She wore a silk dress in jade green, her hair in a soft bun, her makeup natural but refined. As she walked in, several heads turned, not because she was ostentatiously beautiful, but because of the powerful aura of a woman who had shed a toxic marriage. She was mature, poised, and utterly free of weakness. Ethan Reed, a handsome man in his 30s with a warm, elegant smile, stood up to greet her. "Sophia, it's a pleasure. I'm Ethan. Your portfolio is impressive. I'm looking for a long-term partnership." Sophia shook his hand, her voice clear. "Thank you for your confidence, Mr. Reed. I'll have the initial sketches for you in 3 days." "I look forward to it," Ethan nodded. The meeting went more smoothly than she could have imagined. As she left, with the setting sun casting a warm glow, Sophia felt that the person she used to be was truly gone. She was someone new. Not far from the cafe, a silver car was parked quietly. Daniel sat inside, staring through the windshield. He saw Ethan hold the car door open for Sophia, saw the gentle smile on his wife's face, saw the effortless grace he had thrown away. He whispered, his voice choked, "Soph, you've changed so much." Before, she went to work with dark circles under her eyes from crying. Now, she radiated light. Daniel bit his lip, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He never imagined the woman who had once suffered in silence for him could become so captivating the moment she left him behind. Regret seeped into his every breath. That evening, when Sophia returned home, she was surprised to find her mother-in-law, Carol, waiting outside her door. "Sophia, dear, I made some soup. I thought you might like some." Sophia was taken aback. "Thank you, Carol. I'll just change and be right down." Carol grabbed her arm. "Sophia, I'm so sorry about that dinner. I was too harsh. Please don't hold it against me." Her voice was soft, a stark contrast to her usual sharpness. Sophia saw a woman who was afraid her family would truly fall apart, afraid of the consequences of Sophia's silence. Sophia replied curtly, "You don't need to apologize. I've already forgotten about it." But it was her very calmness that frightened Carol even more. Later that night, Sophia sat at her desk, sketching out ideas for the new project. The lamplight cast a soft, brilliant glow on her focused face. Behind the closed door, Daniel stood silently. He watched his wife as if she were a stranger. No tears, no jealousy, no begging, no resentment, just a quiet assent, leaving him far behind. Daniel whispered to himself, "Are you really going to leave me?" But Sophia just gently turned to a new page. She didn't hear him, nor did she need to, because she was no longer the woman she used to be. The next morning, the lobby of the surgical department was bustling. Sophia was about to leave the hospital after delivering the final design plans for a new maternity suite when Chloe ran up to her, breathless, her face a mixture of anger and excitement. "Sophia, I have something huge to tell you." Sophia noted her friend's expression. "What's wrong, Chloe? You look frantic." Chloe pulled her into a quiet corner and held out her phone. "You need to hear this. This is bigger than the video." On the screen was a voice recording. The calm, clear voice of an older nurse was speaking. "That Emily girl is bad news. She's broken up 2 other marriages in this hospital. Both wives ended up quitting their jobs afterward." Chloe explained, the woman speaking as Mrs. Davis, the retired head nurse. She used to be close with Emily and knows all her secrets. The recording continued, "And that's not all. She once skimmed money from a charity fund for poor patients. The whole thing was covered up by the department head at the time. Her whole act, the fake crying, the playing weak, everyone here knows what she's really like." Chloe gritted her teeth. Listen to this, Soph, then you'll understand how she had the nerve to do what she did to you. Sophia reviewed all the data, the recording, old photos, and past text messages from Nurse Davis. The truth was laid bare, but Sophia's face remained calm, showing no signs of outrage. She simply asked, "Is Mrs. Davis willing to testify if the hospital needs her to?" Chloe nodded. She said if someone in authority asks, she'll tell them everything. Sophia closed the phone, took a deep breath, and said, "Good. Thank you, Chloe." Chloe frowned. "Aren't you going to do something to her?" "I don't need to," Sophia replied softly. "The guilty will dig their own graves." When she got home, Sophia opened her laptop and used an incognito browser. She created an anonymous email account, attached all the files Chloe had sent, and wrote a single line addressed to the hospital board. No curses, no threats, no slander. To the board of directors. "This is evidence of past misconduct that was covered up, involving surgical technician Emily Carter. I trust the hospital will reevaluate the ethical standards of its staff." She hit send without hesitation, without a tremor in her hand, and without a pang of guilt. What happened next was no longer her concern. That afternoon, the lights in the main conference room were on earlier than usual. The hospital leadership had received the anonymous email and called an emergency meeting, summoning department heads and ordering HR to pull old personnel files. Everything was done so discreetly that Emily was still in the break room, touching up her lipstick, completely unaware of what was coming. A young nurse ran past the door, whispering to a colleague, "I think the board is investigating someone in our department." At 4 p.m., while Emily was stocking medical supplies, the hospital's PA system crackled to life. "Surgical technician Emily Carter, please report to the administrative office immediately." The announcement, though calm, sent a shockwave through the room. "What's going on, Emily?" a colleague asked. Emily forced a laugh. Probably just a routine file check. But her hand was trembling. When she entered the administrative office, 2 board members were waiting for her. On the table was a thick file and a black USB drive. One of them spoke directly. "Miss Carter, the hospital has received an anonymous report regarding several ethical violations on your part. We need you to cooperate and answer some questions." Emily's face turned white. A report? About what? I haven't done anything wrong." The other board member replied calmly, "We will start from the beginning. We expect your full cooperation." The door closed, and the entire department began to buzz with speculation. Meanwhile, Sophia sat at a roadside cafe with her sketches for Ethan Reed. The light was soft, and rain pattered gently on the awning. She wasn't checking social media, wasn't following hospital news, wasn't waiting for a result. Chloe texted her, "They called Emily in. The whole department is talking." Sophia replied simply, "Okay, let them talk. I'm working." Not another word. Because for a woman who had turned a new page, punishing a traitor wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. Late that night, Emily walked down the hospital stairs, her face ashen. She trudged through the drizzling rain to the parking garage. A colleague called out after her, "Emily, what were they investigating?" "It sounds serious." Emily bit her lip. I don't know, but her red-rimmed eyes said it all. In a dark corner of the garage, a car sat silently. Daniel was inside, watching Emily's trembling figure walk away. He whispered to himself, "What have you done now, Emily?" For the first time, his expression was not one of pity, but of disgust. Elsewhere, Sophia packed up her drawings and left the cafe, her posture straight, her steps light. She didn't know, nor did she need to know, that her actions that day had sent tremors through the entire hospital. The suspension notice was posted on the hospital bulletin board early the next morning. Dr. Daniel Miller, Surgical Department, temporarily suspended for 3 months pending an investigation into professional ethics violations. The news spread like wildfire. Whispers followed. "It must be about that surgical tech. He's handsome, but he's a mess. I thought he was a role model. I guess not." Daniel stood in the middle of the hallway, clutching the official notice, his face gray. He tried to walk away quickly, but his feet felt like they were chained to the floor. At the same time, in the imaging department, Emily was being informed of her transfer. She stood frozen as her supervisor read the decision. Due to reports of unprofessional conduct and behavior unbecoming of a medical environment, you will be temporarily reassigned to the physical rehabilitation department for continued observation. Emily's face went pale. Why? Why me? I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you demoting me to that department? You should reflect on your own actions, the supervisor said coldly. This department has received numerous complaints about you. As she walked out of the office, Emily ran into Daniel in the hallway. She lunged at him, grabbing his arm. This is your fault. It's because of you that I'm being transferred. You've ruined everything for me. Daniel angrily shook her off. You did this to yourself. I didn't force you to do anything. Emily's face flushed with rage, her voice dripping with venom. If you had just been decisive with your wife from the beginning, I wouldn't be in this mess. You're a coward. All you know how to do is hide behind your wife's skirt to save your career. The words were a slap in the face, painful and humiliating, but he couldn't deny them. Emily turned and stormed off, the sharp clicks of her heels echoing on the tile floor. She didn't look back. That evening, Daniel sat alone on the sofa. Only one dim lamp was on, casting long shadows on his haggard face. He scrolled through old text messages from Sophia. Have you eaten dinner yet? Remember to come home early. Good night. Simple, ordinary words that now felt like daggers in his heart. His phone rang. It was his mother, Carol. He answered. Daniel, what on earth have you done? She demanded frantically. The entire family is talking about you being disciplined. You need to go beg Sophia for forgiveness. If she's truly done with you, who's going to save you? Daniel frowned. Mom, I don't want to use her anymore. Use her? She snapped. She's your wife. She's supposed to stand by you. You let that little tramp ruin everything, and you're still pining after her? He sighed. Mom, please stay out of it. If I stay out of it, who's going to help you? Carol shouted. If I had known, I would have held on to Sophia from the very beginning. Daniel said nothing. Carol hung up with a frustrated sigh. A few moments later, he heard the front door open. Sophia walked in, carrying her portfolio and a work bag. She was wearing a chic white dress, her hair pulled back neatly. She didn't look at him, heading straight for her office. But that one brief glimpse was enough to shatter his heart. She looked calm, beautiful, and strong, like a woman who had emerged from the shadow of their marriage. Daniel's voice trembled. Sophia, you're home late. She didn't turn around. I'm busy with the Ethan Reed project. The deadline is tight. I'm going to my office. Her voice was soft, but as cold as a winter wind. Daniel stood up, wanting to say something, but the words caught in his throat. He could only watch as her back disappeared behind the door. The moment it closed, his chest ached so badly he could barely breathe. He muttered to himself, Sophia, I was wrong. I was so wrong. This time, it wasn't the pressure from the hospital, his mother's scolding, or even Emily's betrayal that broke him. It was the fact that Sophia had completely and utterly left his heart. No screaming, no crying, just silently leaving him behind. And that was what hurt Daniel the most. That afternoon, a light rain began to fall. Droplets trickled down the car windshield as Sophia pulled up in front of the house that had once been her home. She took a deep breath and stepped out. Daniel was already waiting by the door, looking utterly defeated. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes were dark and sunken, and his hair was unkempt from sleepless nights. Sophia, he said as soon as he saw her. Thank you for coming. I really want to explain everything. Sophia didn't answer. She walked past him and into the house with a strange placidness. In the living room, Emily was already seated. She was wearing heavy, defiant makeup, but her eyes betrayed her fear. The moment she saw Sophia, Emily shot to her feet. So, you're here. Good. I want to make one thing clear today. I'm not going to let you destroy my life like this. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Destroy? Yes. Emily pointed a finger at her, her voice shrill. Ever since you sent that anonymous complaint, I've been transferred, investigated, and gossiped about by everyone. Are you trying to ruin my career? Daniel frowned. Emily, don't say that. Sophia didn't. But Emily cut him off, striding closer to Sophia. Don't play innocent. If it wasn't you, who was it? That USB drive, that video, and that anonymous letter to the board? Who else would have the time or motive to do all that? Sophia set her purse on the table and calmly pulled out a thin stack of papers. You want clarity, don't you? She asked, her voice soft, but each word was sharp. She held out the papers. Emily snatched them, her eyes scanning the page before her face went completely pale. It was a copy of the anonymous complaint the board had received, detailing every one of Emily's transgressions over the past 2 years, including the charity fund theft, complete with photocopies of her bank statements. Emily started shaking. How? How did you get this? Only the board should have this. Who gave it to you? Sophia looked her straight in the eye. Who gave it to me doesn't matter. What matters is that it's all true. Emily staggered back, her face as white as a sheet. No, you're trying to frame me. You want to get me fired so you can have Daniel all to yourself. Sophia laughed, a sound full of irony. Why are you so confident? Daniel isn't a prize to be won. Daniel took a deep, uncomfortable breath. Sophia, don't say that. Sophia crossed her arms. You want him? He's standing right in front of you. Go ahead, keep him. I'm giving him back. The statement stunned both of them. Emily was speechless for a few seconds before erupting in a rage. You think you've won? You haven't. Even with your complaint, you haven't beaten me. Sophia shook her head. You've already lost, Emily. What? What does that mean? It means you're scared, Sophia said, looking down at the papers and then slowly concluding. You're so scared you're running from the hospital, so scared you're blaming everyone else to save yourself. The thing that's scaring you isn't me, and it isn't him. It's the truth. Emily trembled, unable to speak. She glanced at Daniel, the man she thought would protect her, but he just stood there silently, not making a move to defend her. In that moment, Emily knew it was over. She spun around and ran out, bursting into tears, the sound of her heels heavy and final. The door slammed shut behind her, leaving the two of them alone. Daniel sighed and sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Sophia, what do I have to do for you to forgive me? Sophia looked at him, her gaze softening slightly, but it was still distant. Forgiveness isn't something you should be looking for from me, and it isn't something I can give. He looked up, his voice cracking. I can change. I promise. Just don't leave me. She shook her head gently. I'm not leaving. We've already ended. Daniel shot to his feet and moved toward her. Sophia, say that again. I can't accept this. She took a step back. Daniel, in my heart, I stopped being your wife a long time ago. He froze, the pain etched on his face. Sophia picked up her bag and walked to the door. Before she left, she delivered her final words, as light as the wind but sharper than any blade. I only came here today to put an end to all of this. I won't be coming back to this house again. She closed the door. The soft click was, for Daniel, the sound of an entire chapter of his life closing forever. The next morning, in the quiet little alley where Sophia had rented a small studio apartment, the sun streamed through the curtains, illuminating a document on her glass table. It was the divorce decree, stamped by the city court. Next to it was a thin envelope containing a summary of the evidence she had received from Chloe. Sophia smoothed the edge of the paper, her expression calm, her eyes deep and resolute. Today, it would all be over. When Daniel arrived at her door, he no longer carried the air of a respected surgeon. His jacket was rumpled, his hair a mess, and his eyes were hollow from sleepless nights. He stood there for a few seconds before speaking. Sophia, can I come in? Sophia stepped aside. Come in. We need to settle this. The room was so quiet they could hear the second hand of the clock ticking. Daniel saw the papers on the table. He walked over unsteadily, his hand trembling as he reached for them. This is the divorce papers, Sophia said, each word clear and deliberate. I've already signed. Now it's your turn. Daniel clutched the document, his voice choked. Sophia, do you really want this? Sophia met his gaze without flinching. I've wanted this for a long time. Today is just the right time to finalize it. He pulled out a chair and sat, his hands clasped together to stop them from shaking. She placed another paper in front of him, and this is the final condition. Daniel opened it. After reading only a few lines, his face went deathly pale. The condition stated, if Daniel Miller attempts to obstruct, harass, or defame Sophia Miller in any way following the divorce, she will submit all evidence pertaining to his professional ethics violations to the National Medical Board. This would result in the permanent revocation of his medical license. He looked up, his voice breaking. Sophia, are you trying to threaten me? Sophia shook her head. No, this is my boundary. This is to protect myself. I don't want you to continue using emotions to manipulate or pressure me. I want this divorce to be handled with the last shred of respect we have. If you choose another path, I have my own. Daniel bowed his head, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably. I never thought it would come to this. She gently pushed a pen toward him. Sign it, Daniel. It's too late for anything else. At first, he didn't move. He looked at the divorce papers, at the condition, and then at her, each glance like a cut to his own heart. Finally, he picked up the pen. His hand shook so badly the signature was uneven, but he signed his full name. When the last stroke was complete, Daniel dropped the pen and covered his face with his hands. Tears fell onto the table. After a long moment, he looked up, his eyes red and raw, his voice shattered. Sophia, I just want to ask one thing. Why didn't you release the evidence from the start? Why did you wait until now? Sophia stood silently, her hands clenched at her sides. She looked at him for a long time before she spoke. Because I used to love you. The words were as soft as a breath, but they hit Daniel like a physical blow. I once thought I could forgive, she continued, her voice calm but as hard as stone. But today, that love is gone. Daniel stared at her, his eyes filled with a pain she had never seen in him before. But Sophia didn't waver. She took the signed papers, placed them in a folder, and closed it securely. Thank you for signing. From now on, we are officially done. Daniel jumped to his feet, his voice desperate. Sophia, don't go. Please, don't leave me like this. Sophia walked to the door and turned back one last time. I already left, Daniel. I left the day you chose to believe someone else over me. Today was just the paperwork. With that, she opened the door and stepped outside. The wind gently lifted her hair. The door closed behind her. She didn't look back. Inside the room, Daniel collapsed into his chair, the papers in his hand trembling with every breath. The pain he felt now was a wound of his own making, and it could never be healed. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Sophia's life had entered a completely new chapter. She stood in the modern office of a prestigious design firm, where she had just been promoted to lead interior designer. Her team gathered around the presentation table, their expressions full of respect. A young designer looked at Sophia with pride. Sophia, that rendering you did last week. The client, Ethan Reed, said there was only one word for it. Brilliant. Sophia smiled, her expression poised and confident. Thank you. Let's all keep up the great work. This project needs to be perfect. She wasn't boastful or arrogant, but the self-assurance she exuded lit up the entire room. Ethan Reed, the notoriously discerning client and handsome real estate magnate, had recently started inviting her for coffee to discuss the project further. Their relationship was easy and professional, built on mutual respect. Sophia wasn't rushing into anything. She was savoring the freedom she had never known before. In stark contrast, Daniel's life had plummeted. Once a surgeon with a bright future, he was now an assistant at a small, private clinic tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. His white coat no longer brought him pride. His reputation was tarnished, his former colleagues were distant, and patients were wary of him. One afternoon, as he was leaving work, he caught sight of a familiar figure walking past his old hospital. It was a fleeting moment, but it made him freeze. It was Sophia. She was wearing a light blue dress, her walk slow but confident. The setting sun cast a soft glow on her face, making her so beautiful it was painful to watch. Sophia, Daniel stammered. Without thinking, he ran after her, his voice urgent. Sophia, wait. It's me. But Sophia didn't turn around. She didn't stop. She didn't even break her stride. She heard his voice, but her feet continued to move forward, a silent affirmation that the man behind her no longer belonged in her world. Daniel stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, watching her figure disappear into the distance. A lump formed in his throat, and his eyes stung. An old nurse from the hospital walked by, glanced at him, and sighed. "You don't know how to cherish what you have until it's gone." Daniel clenched his fists, but there was nothing he could do. That evening, Sophia and Chloe sat at a cafe by the river. The warm lights reflected on the water, creating a peaceful ambiance. Chloe rested her chin on her hand, looking at her friend. "You don't have any regrets, do you, about leaving all that behind?" Sophia gently swirled the water in her glass, a soft, content light in her eyes. She spoke slowly, but with absolute certainty. "Regrets? No. The day I handed him those papers, I set myself free." Chloe smiled and let out a sigh of relief. "I've been waiting for this day for so long. You look your best now. You look like yourself." Sophia leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on the city lights where the traffic flowed endlessly. "I don't need anyone to look back. I don't need an apology. All I need is to feel at peace with myself. That's enough." Chloe nodded. "And you deserve it, Sophia." As she walked down the cafe steps, the night wind blew gently through her hair. The light at the end of the street illuminated her face, revealing the smile of freedom she had fought so hard to win. No more ties, no more pain, no more weak men holding her back. Sophia walked straight toward the light, each step steady and proud. A woman once underestimated had now become the one who made everyone turn their heads. And only as she walked away did they finally understand her true worth.